everybody. You can tell the substitutes here because they didn't put the podium up for me. This would never have happened to Robert. So my name's Brian. I did not go to preacher school, but I'm pretty sure the first joke that they teach you at preacher school is if you're ever speaking when the lead pastor is gone, you have to make fun of him. So I'm here to say, hey, if you're looking for that old guy, you got me. Also, it's no secret. You guys don't have to hide. I know I'm a bigger guy. I'm terrified of this stage. This spot right here. There are two things that I'm afraid of. It's the stage and any of those chairs, because every week I see normal-sized people carrying broken chairs from the audience. So I just stand in the back. My name's Brian. Robert and Carrie, our fearless leaders, are on vacation with their family. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You're stuck with me. A lot of people have asked me if I'm nervous. Maybe a little bit, but I also know I'm going to be the hero because you guys are going to get to lunch earlier. So, no longer nervous. No, it's great to be here. It's great to be here for the first, for this Sunday. This is my third time preaching in 12 years. So either I'm in super high demand or I'm like literally the last resort. But last week I wasn't here. I was on vacation, and it's great to be back. I hate any time I miss. This is my family here. And so getting to be back together with you guys is awesome. So I got the chance to listen to Robert's lesson last week, and, as we jumped into the restoration process, I know there's cars on here, there's cars on the screen, and I don't really know how they get from that to that. I'm not a car guy at all. Even furniture, I've never necessarily, restored. But one thing I think, the closest thing I can think of that I've restored is also this headset is not a 2X. So, but the closest thing I can think of is I used to detail cars. And, so I would go to people's houses and I would clean their cars. And as it said, we're getting back to where you were meant to be. And we can all remember the first time we bought a car, whether it was a used car or a new car, it was clean. It was the way that it was made, the way that it left the assembly line. And I used to remember when I would go and I would get some of the nicer cars. Those were always really clean because those guys are very meticulous, but then I would get, no offense to any of you, soccer moms in a minivan, or my friend Brian who drives a minivan, you guys are gross, or it's your kids, I don't know. But anytime we would show up to a house and it was a minivan, I knew it was gonna be a really, really long day. But you would get done and you would take this minivan that had, years of goldfish and chocolate milk and ice cream and boogers and all those sort of things, and you would get done and you just have this car that looked almost brand new. Maybe it was an older car, maybe it was used, but yet you had something that you started with that was kind of a mess. It was kind of junk, something you wouldn't want to sit in, you're kind of uncomfortable in, and now you can find that comfort. I think is as we talk about today's lesson, that's what we're looking for. When we first walked into the church, any one of us, it was uncomfortable. We didn't want to be here. Maybe we came because we moved. Maybe we came because we were on our last leg in our marriage, in our walk, but yet we came in and it was uncomfortable. It was a mess. And yet God was able to work through us. That's kind of what we talked about last week, or what you guys talked about last week, is what it really means to restore, what that process looks like. And so today we're picking back up in 2 Chronicles, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the practical applications for a restoration process. So we're picking up, God is appearing to Solomon, and he says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will hear from heavens and will forgive their sins and restore their land. So I think there's some things that we see here. There's some promises that are made from this verse. But yet the thing that I think I take most from this is there's action. There's an action that takes place. When we sit down and we study the Bible and we talk about what it means to seek God, we don't say like, oh, well, if you show up, you come in on Sunday, everything's going to be great. You show up, join the church, everything's going to be awesome. You don't have to do anything. That would be really cool, but that's not the truth here. And so I see three promises in this verse. The first one, and we're going to break the verse down a little bit. It says, I will hear from heaven. So what's he talking about here? He's talking about the present. You know, we're all here today, you know, and some of us, we're all in different areas. We're in different walks of our relationship with God. We're in different walks of life. We're in different walks of career. You know, we don't have our college students here. You know, they're in a different walk than I am as they're preparing to you know, learn to enter into adulthood. You know, we have our teens who are deciding, you know, what is my life going to look like? And hopefully it's designed and centered around Christ, but you're looking at, where am I going to go to college? Am I going to go to college? Am I going to go into the trades? Am I going to, you know, but I think it's the thing, we look back and we want to know that God's going to take care of us no matter what. I will forgive their sins. So we're talking about the past. You know, and all of us, once again, we all have a past. We all have a story. You know, and I think about my story and I think about where I came from, the way that I mistreated God, the way that when I came to the church, I pretended to have everything together, had no, you know, basically it was just a giant hypocrite and a liar. I walked in and I was like, man, I'm without sin, you know, and yet I'm here, I'm a mess. I think that was one of the hardest things I had a really hard time believing, is that God could forgive my sin. He could help heal my past. Whether that was the past that was out of my control or the past that I controlled. And then thirdly, I will restore their land, which is the future. Once again, we all are going to have a future. I don't know the length of anyone's future, but we all have one. And it's comforting to know that when we can humbly come to God and we can humbly ask for his help, we know that we're not going to go through the things that we went through growing up. You know, one of the things, you know, on Sunday mornings is because we only run one service, is we have our teacher service, you know, a kind of abbreviated service with the teachers because they don't get to sit in here because they're teaching your kids. And I was sitting there and I was talking with them and I just couldn't help but, I don't know, just feel something, you know, I think a lot about my kids. And if you've ever met my son, Oliver, he is confident, he is everything that I'm not. He's loud, he's obnoxious, he's so many things that I'm not. And a lot of times he brings up, you know, my past. One time, you know, I think I've done openings enough. You know, I think that, you know, I was raised by a single mom. You know, she passed away when I was younger. And one time we were driving in the car and he goes, Dad, I hope I'm not like your parents. I was like, why, buddy? He was like, well, you know, your dad left and your mom died. So, you know, it's kind of like, it's truth, you know? And so like, as I'm sitting there and I'm talking to these teachers, I can't help but think, man, I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm so grateful for the fact that my kids aren't going to have to go through the same things that I went through. You know, I've watched kids this year especially that I watched grow up, graduate college or high school. You know, I'm watching them become adults. And it's so cool to know that I saw them. And none of them would say they didn't have their stuff from their parents or from their walks, but their lives are so much different because of the decisions that their parents made. You know, and so you guys being here, you know, if you're a parent, you're visiting, I mean, you're doing so much not only to protect your future, but your kids' future too. You know, and so today we're talking about humility, you know, and really what I see here is there's a promise, is that no matter where we're at in our walk with God, he will meet you where you're at. You know, like I said, some of us, maybe you're walking in today for the first time. Maybe you're saying, man, do I want to give God a chance? Maybe you're walking in and you've been here forever. You grew up in the church. Maybe you were forced to be here. But yet you're here and God's going to meet you no matter where you're at. But I think, like I said in this, there is some action and there's some prerequisites today. So we're going to talk about two prerequisites, some essential things. But first we have to be humble enough to ask for help. Right there when I got here and Robert sent me this lesson, I got there and I was like, nah, I'm done. You know, because that's, personally for me, that's one of the hardest things. Is to say that I don't know what I'm doing and I have to humbly ask for help. You know, we've all bought furniture. IKEA furniture is the worst. And yet you get it and you think, oh, I can put this together, you know. And I remember getting a dresser or something for our bedroom or one of our kids' rooms, and each drawer is the same thing, right? You got the front, you got the sides, you got the bottom. Follow the directions for the first one. I don't got to do that anymore. Forget those directions. And I learned that I need to always follow the directions. From drawer 1 to drawer 6, I need to follow that directions because slowly each one got a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more wrong because I thought I could do it for myself. So that's what God is saying. He's saying that we must be humble enough to ask for help. That's what we see here. That's what we hear as God appears to Solomon. He's saying, listen, guys, I'm going to take care of you. But I'm going to take care of you when you humble yourself and you talk to me. So the essential number one is the humility part, right? Humble enough. And honestly, guys, humility is acknowledging I can't do it without God. I think so much about my own walk, which is why I felt so challenged in doing this lesson, that every day I decide I can do something without him. I can parent without him. I can be a husband without him. I can be a professional without him. And all I've ever seen when I've done that is my life fall apart. That's what even brought me to him because I thought I could do it without him. But I think what we have to realize is there's a mindset behind it that humility isn't yet necessarily denying your weakness. It's your strength. It's not denying what you're good at. It's acknowledging what you maybe need a little bit more help in. We've all moved jobs. We've all gone to a different school. We've all done those things where things are different. Man, I just got back from Mexico where life was extremely different. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the traffic rules. I didn't know, how to make a phone call. I make a phone call and even the ring sounds different. And I'm like, phone's broke. Trying to order room service the first night. Phone's broke, doesn't work. Well, really, it was working. I just didn't know. I didn't know what it was doing there. Philip Brooks, a guy way smarter than me, says the true way to be humble is not to stoop until you are smaller than yourself, but to stand at your real height against some higher nature that will show you what the real smallness of your greatness is. Man. And I think there's a challenge in there, but there's also an encouragement to know, guys, that we're not meant to be the best. There is always going to be somebody that is better than you. I love our worship team. I love Robert. I love our preacher. I love our sound, It's always really great. That's what I normally do on Sundays. I love our kids ministry, but guys, there's better ones out there. There are better singers. Sorry, Aaron. There's somebody better out there. I haven't met him yet, but he's out there. And the actual word for humility is hummus, which roughly means from the earth. So for us, it really is the fact that we know an acknowledgement that we can't do it on our own. So why humility? Why? Why do we have to do this? All right, cool. God, why can't you just give us all the good without making us put in the work? Well, first of all, humility leads me to turn to God. We're going to go back to 2 Chronicles. This time we're talking about Manasseh. It says, in his suffering, Manasseh became humble. He turned to the Lord, his God, and begged him for help. And so what we see here in Manasseh, and if you know it all about Manasseh, the guy was kind of a bad dude. He murdered people. He sacrificed one of his sons. He was a very worldly he had multiple pagan idol. The guy was really, when you look at somebody who would talk about healing, he would not be the guy. So it wasn't until this moment, we name all of our classes, our help classes after that, our Manasseh classes. Because it's taken all the junk that we've done, all the things that we've done in the past, and we can heal from that, and we can start to move forward. And that's what we see here. But I think the really sad part here, and the really challenging part, and why I think it's first off, is it does not always push us to turn to God. I have had people that I loved, people that I thought were going to grow old with, people who I thought were never going to be, that were going to be at my kids' graduations one day, who things went hard and they turned away. So there is a choice that we have to make here to turn to him. It leads me to there, but what do they say? You can't lead a thirsty horse to dry water or something? I don't know. I always say things wrong. What is it? Thirsty water? I don't know. That's right. You can't make him drink. That's what I said. I knew you guys were listening. So there's a choice here. And guys, Manasseh is not the first time this happened. That suffering led to turning from God. I know there's a lot less people in this room today, but I know many of you. I know many of your stories, and I know that you didn't necessarily just come to church because you're like, man, my life is great, and I just want to make it a little bit greater. Most of us had good lives, or thought we had good lives without God. And it's what brought us here was something went really bad. And guys, I hate that that happens to us, but I'm also so grateful for God that he provides us with those opportunities to come here and to know him and to be saved so that our kids, our future, our lives don't have to be the crap that we grew up in. But there is that choice there. Psalms 10:4 says, because he is proud, that evil person doesn't turn to the Lord, there's no room for God in any of his thoughts. So one of the things I was doing as I was going through the lesson, and something that happens most weeks, is checking for typos, making sure the verses were right, and kind of looking into some of the backstory. And really what I see here, and something that was kind of noted as I was looking into this verse, is that it's noted here that we see those who do not seek God in the same sentence as the ones who don't think about him. And so what I'm saying by that is we've all, we made the choice to seek him. You're here, right? You're giving him a chance, which is awesome. So you're seeking him. And so that's kind of that thing. It's like, okay, well, I've done that. I've sought him. I'm here. Things are going to be good. But yet, how often do we not think about him? I don't think about God when I'm making my decisions, all the time. I mean, I do. I think it's something that I've strived to do in my life. But I think it's something that, honestly, I could do more. And it puts me in that same path. It's that same thing when we talk about lukewarmness. God doesn't want it. He wants us not only to seek him, but also to keep him front of mind, top of mind. So humility leads me to turn to God, and humility leads me to learn from God. Psalms 25:9 says, he shows those who are humble how to do right, and he teaches them his ways. Kind of the complete opposite of what we just read there, right? Those who are proud, those who are unwilling to ask for help, he's not welcome, he's not saying, hey, come here, let me do all the great things for you. He's saying, those who are humble, those are the ones I'm going to show. Those are the ones that I'm going to lead. Those are the ones that I'm going to help get all the blessings, all the things that Aaron was talking about. All the life change that we've seen at the Crossings Church. Deuteronomy 8:3 says, he humbled you by letting you go hungry. And isn't that where it all begins? Isn't that where every time that we're faced with an education or a lesson or a challenge from God, it comes from a hunger, something that maybe we were starved of, something that maybe that was taken from us. And it says here, because we go on, he did it to teach you that people do not live by bread alone. Yeah, I know food is important. I just came from a week where I was not hungry for more than 25 minutes. And yet, I still had my time in my word, time with the people that I was there with. Because I know that in that life, in that way that I'm just surviving, I've been there. And I know that it's lonely, it's hard. And God doesn't want that for any of us, but also, like I said earlier, right? You can't teach a horse to drink. I didn't say it. I'm sorry. Rather, we live by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. So as I was reading into this, George Washington Carver was a guy, and I honestly, until I looked into it, I thought he created peanut butter. He didn't. Surprise. But he didn't make a lot of other things with peanuts. 300 things. And I was like, man, what else do you make with peanut butter? Peanuts. Make peanut butter. That's it. What else do you make? That's what he made. No, he made chili sauce, shampoo, shaving cream, and glue. All that stuff has peanuts. That is crazy. I've always said that if I had a kid with a peanut allergy, I would probably get him taken away because I wouldn't know what he couldn't have. There's a quote by George Washington Carver that says, when I was young, I said to God, God, tell me the mystery of the universe. But God answered, that knowledge is reserved for me alone. So I said, God, tell me the mystery of the peanut. And God said, well, George, it's more your size. And he told me. Right? So we want to know everything. We want to think that we need to know every little thing that happens. Every reason to why there's pain, why there's suffering, why there's good, why there's bad, why there's all these types of things. And God's saying, hey, don't worry about it. I got you. You know, I've met a lot of people who struggle with faith. You know, they struggle with, why God? You know, I struggled with that a lot as I came to the church because I didn't have a father. So why would I want to sacrifice and give all this for someone who's designed to be my dad when all my dad did was leave? You know, so I struggled with that. And have I found the reason of why he left? I haven't, but I have found peace in that. And all of us have those same things. We think, why did he take this person from me? Why did I lose my job? Why did my life fall apart around me? But yet, God's saying, hey guys, I know it's hard. Me and my wife the other day were even talking about something, and she had asked Carrie about it, and her response was, well, I'll read more about it. So Carrie was like, you didn't like my answer, did you? She said, nope. So I'm going to do some more research. And it's the same thing. You know, when we look at the things with God, there are things that I can't point you to in Scripture for an answer. You know, but there is a faith in God that we take when we have a humility to say that he can lead me and I can learn from him. The truth is that our attitude, the way that we respond, is way more of an obstacle to learning than our ability or our aptitude. You know, I'm not someone who, I wouldn't say I'm the smartest person in the room, especially in this room. But yet, I think what God's saying here is there's more of a problem. There's not a problem of God's unwillingness to give. It's our unwillingness to accept and our unwillingness to learn. And I think that can be the same thing for me. I think I should know how to do this. I've been doing this for long enough. Why do I have to look into this? Why do I have to continue reading? Why do I have to continue learning? Because God's saying that. He's saying, listen, I want to provide blessing. I want to provide knowledge, but it takes your acceptance and your desire to have that and a good heart, a good attitude. James 1:21 says, humbly accept the word that God has placed in you. This word can save you. I mean, that alone, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm done. It saves me. And honestly, the truth is this word can save us not only for our eternity, but it can save us right now. We live, guys, truth be told, and I don't know where you stand, left, right, any of that sort of things, but guys, we live in a very messed up world. There's no truth, there's no denying that. We are further divided, separated than at least in my lifetime, that I've ever seen. Christianity is persecuted at a higher rate than it's ever been. Things that are against maybe what the Bible teaches are taught in our schools. It's taught on the non-biased news, right? And yet, it's God that's going to take us through that. The purity of God's word will preserve us. It's going to save us. It's going to be the only thing that can get us through this impure age, this time that we're living in. And then thirdly, humility leads me to be blessed by God. I always feel like then Robert goes in there and no one gets to fill it out, so I'll give you guys a second. Isaiah 57:15 says, the high and holy one. I think what we need to recognize there is there's almost like a giving your credentials. God's kind of giving his credentials there. I would never introduce myself with my credentials. I don't really have any. But if I had a doctorate, I wouldn't be like, I'm Dr. Brian, MD. Listen to me. It has nothing to do with it, but here we see God, and he's kind of saying, so I think the first thing is we have to acknowledge that he is our Lord. He is the high and holy one. It goes on to say, I live with, let me find it here, I live with those whose spirits are contrite and humble. I restore the crushed spirit of the humble. I told a story in the teacher service about my son. I've talked about him a couple times. My son Oliver is extremely confident. We signed him up for wrestling this past year, and he had done like a wrestling camp the year before. It was 6 classes, 1 hour each. Do the math, 6 hours of wrestling. It's a lot right now. And then with teaching, with bathroom breaks, with drink breaks, deduct 2 hours. So he's got 4 hours of wrestling experience on his plate, on his resume. And we're driving. He goes, Dad, I'm pretty good in wrestling. Probably going to be one of the best ones on the team. Let's go, yeah? Why do you think that? He goes, well, I've wrestled before. I was like, Oliver, you have no idea. But I was like, yeah, but maybe. We'll see. We'll get there. And we go in, and I see a kid, and he has a state shirt on, it's state finalist or something on the back of his shirt. And I said, hey, why don't you go ask that kid? Because they were just kind of sparring around, and I said, hey, why don't you go ask that kid? I know his name's Colt. He was a state champion for his age, 8 or whatever. And Oliver walks up, and he's like, hey, you want to wrestle? The kid kind of turned around, and he's like, sure, And I wish I had filmed it because he tossed him around. Because number one, my son is a big 8-year-old. This kid was a small 8-year-old. So Oliver's got 6 inches, 30 pounds. He throws him around like a rag doll. And when it says, I restore the crushed spirit, that is what he left with that night. And I couldn't have been more proud and happier that that kid did what he did to him. Because on that drive home, I said, hey, buddy, you the best one on the team or what? Did you get a medal tonight? He was like, no, Dad, I'm not at all. I said, well, hey, that kid you wrestled, is he around your age? Yeah. I said, hey, why don't you stick to that kid? Why don't you stay with that kid, and I bet he can teach you something. I bet he, some of his experience, his knowledge, and that's the same thing that we see in our walks with God. God has placed people in your life that have been there longer than we have. People that can help us shepherd along the way, help us to get to that point when we are crushed, that we can get here where it says, and revive the courage of those with repentant hearts. And I'm not saying he did everything right, but he could have left that night thinking, man, that kid just caught me on a lucky day. I was a little wet on the mat, I didn't have shoes on yet. Yet he stuck with that kid, and he got better. And it's the same thing, guys. It's not saying you have to do this alone. God's put people in your life to call out those things, to point out those things, and sometimes it can be really hard. It can be hard to say those things. It can also be hard to hear those things. But really what it's saying here is that when you feel that, when you're that crushed spirit, God can take that and heal that. James 4:6 says, I jumped ahead there. Scripture says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. And I read that and I say, how many times I have been, I want to say accused, but it's true. I've been told I was being prideful. I've probably been told I am prideful more times than I have been told, and you're so humble. And yet God's saying he opposes that. And yet I look to myself and I think I'm good because I'm not doing all these other bad things. I'm faithful. I read my Bible. I serve. I give my tithe. I do all those things. And yet I still think I can do it on my own. And what God's telling me is he's against that. He opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Man, I've been humbled so many times in my life. I've been reminded that I am not exactly where I need to be, that I need to push myself, whether that's in my marriage, in parenting, as a man. But yet I know that if I humble myself to God and I have that humble part, that essential part number one, I know he's going to pick me up. He's going to help me. He's going to restore me, just like that car on the first page there. Proverbs 15:33 says, if you want to be honored, you must be humble. I think so much, and I don't care if in 100 years nobody knows my name, but I want my legacy to carry on through my kids, through the people at this church. Something that I have witnessed as I've worked with adults is seeing not only parents get saved, but get to see kids grow up and not grow up in the junk that they were supposed to. And so I think for that, and I think, man, that's the humility part. That's the part where I need to say, I want to be honored. I want to be someone who God looks to and he says, you know what, man, Brian, he's a guy that I trust. He's a guy that I look, that I know is going to do the work. I can work through him. But it takes that action. It takes that humility. And the essential number two, so we've talked about the need for humility, but the second one is the asking God for help part. Right? And so as we go back to that 2 Chronicles verse, it says, those who humble themselves and pray, I will hear. So why prayer? Why do we need to pray? Why is that the thing that we need to do after the humility part? And it's because, first of all, prayer connects me with God's power. As we read there earlier, it says, in his suffering, Manasseh became humble and begged him for help. So that's what we saw there. We've seen him become humble. We've seen the fact that he's basically on death row. And he's become humbled and he's begged for help. And then it says here, we pick back up, it says, when he prayed, the Lord listened to him, and he was moved. So the Lord brought Manasseh back to Jerusalem. There's not a whole lot of detail on what happened. Was there a covert ops that came in and busted him out? What really took place there? But yet he was rescued through God's power, and he was able to go on to do some incredible things. It's the same thing with us. Manasseh had a past, just like every one of us. But yet in his time to his need, he was able to turn to God, and God listened, and God helped. God used the power. He used the power of healing, the power of forgiveness to say, listen, man, I got you for all that stuff you did. Do some good stuff now. And so I think that's another thing that I know I've struggled with, and I've talked with many of people, is I think being just God, the relationship with God is a one-way thing. Well, as long as I'm good with God and my family's good with God, then we're good. But yet God says it's pretty different. He wants us to take that. He wants us to connect with his power, but then he wants to then use that power. He wants us to use it, to go out, to meet people, to save people, to do those things. Daniel 10:12 says, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you have humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. Daniel's a really cool book. If you struggle with prayer and you struggle with, is God listening? Does prayer work? Daniel's an incredible book to read. Because we see it time and time again. We see what an awesome prayer life, the power of an awesome prayer life can look like. In this passage here, Daniel's been praying for almost 3 weeks. Powerfully, consistently. You know, and I know that for me, prayer life can go up and down, right? When I see an answered prayer, man, I'm praying for everything, you know? But I know when I start to see prayers not be answered, or maybe not go my own way, I start to feel like, well, maybe prayer just makes me feel better. Is God really listening? I'm not getting the answers, or the answers that I want. So maybe it's just therapy, right? Maybe it's just an opportunity for me to talk about my feelings. You know, I think about Jack Nicholson and anger management, goose fraba. You know, it's that word that we say when we get so heated that it can calm us down. You know, and so I can think the same thing about prayer. I want to pray before, you know, I was praying over there. You know, help me, you know, God, help me speak. Help me to be clear. Help me to be calm. Help this stage not to break. You know, and so I get to this moment, I get to this part of my life where I think, is God listening? What we see here and the power in this is that it shows that prayer isn't just that. It matters. It's seen. And he says, because of your words, I am here. It doesn't say that you said the right words or you said pretty please. Did you talk to me? I listened. I mean, I do think we have to be prepared to know that sometimes the answer isn't the answer that we want, which I know can be really hard. You know, but I can also know, and I can ask for a show of hands. I mean, I think I would see him as I would say, like, hey, when have you gotten an answer to a prayer that you didn't want, and yet it turned out to be better than you ever imagined? You know, I can think about times in my life, you know, and I prayed for something, and I got it. Or I got the complete opposite, and I was so upset. And yeah, it turned out to be something really cool, really powerful, and something that I can look back and say, like, well, that was a moment in my life where God took care of me. And he said, I got you. I got you. James 5:16 says, the prayer of a godly person is powerful. It makes things happen. I think the thing to note here is it's not saying, and there's no credentials that are given. The prayer of a godly person that has so many years of experience and has saved this many people. I will listen to you before the person who has wet out the water. It doesn't say that. It says the prayer of a godly person is powerful. Because every single one of us in this room has the power to make things happen. Whether that's at our schools, at our homes, at our work, within our family. You know, I think until we as a church live like everyone that we meet doesn't know him, we're not going to grow like we want. Hopefully pretty soon we're going to have a big muddy mess across the street. I guess not across the street. Next door, where we're building a building, one that can hold more people. We got to fill those seats, you know, and that comes with us putting in the work, us with letting God work in our lives. Not just so that we can fill a building, guys, but so that we can get the same life change that we received. I mean, I know that I'll be honest, if I didn't see blessings from God in those around me and in myself, why would I give so much to him? Why would I sacrifice so much? You know, I mean, I would love to say that I would keep going, but guys, I don't know. Yet I see it time and time again. I see the way that God's taking care of me and those around me. And that's because of his power. Things that we never thought would could happen. Then second, prayer connects me with God's peace. I think this is one that I need often. I mean, I guess I still am. It's still in there, I guess. But I used to have a lot of anger problems, getting a lot of fights, things like that. And so I think really that was one of the things when I first came to know God I had to pray hard for him to give me a spirit of peace, a spirit that is one that isn't quick to get angry and to fight. I wouldn't say that I have, arrived, or maybe it's seen more in my home than in with my friends, right? Where I let my hair down. But yet there's a power in his peace. And I think it was through prayer, it was through me communicating with him that he began to work in my heart. And he gave me that peaceful spirit. Philippians 4:6 says, "Never worry about anything, but in every situation let God know what you need in prayers, in requests while giving thanks." Also, I want to pause again there. It doesn't just say, let God know what you need. It doesn't just say ask. Right? It's the same thing when we looked earlier when it said the powerful one, the holy one. Guys, there does have to be an acknowledgement and an action of what God has done for you. He's not just this magic genie that you rub a lamp and he comes out and you're like, give me a new car. And it just appears. It comes with that thankful heart. It takes that action through humility while knowing that he's done, even if things are so hard and you're so broken, I think we still give thanks to him for what he's done and where he's brought us from. And the fact that we're even here. Psalms 55:22, our last verse says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous fall." I think that's where we go back to that choice part. The part in we have a decision. None of this is forced. A relationship with God is not a forced relationship. Just like the relationships that we choose to have with one another, with our spouses. It's a choice that we make every day. And I think, with God, he's saying, lean to him, be humble, talk to him. Because like I said, I have seen people who I thought either they were going to be at my funeral or I was going to be at theirs. But because of a lack of humility, a lack of connection to God, they've turned away from him, they've turned away from me. And those relationships will never be the same. Unless there's a humility part from me, from them. I'm sure in some of those cases I didn't do everything right. But yet I think, what God's saying is he's saying, listen, I'll take care of you. Man, you gotta step down a little bit. Right? We play that video of the skit guys, of the chair and the life. Giving God the throne of your life. And there's that struggle. And I think it takes a very humble heart and a very humble decision to get up and say, God, I don't know what I'm doing. We can go back to the car. I don't know how to drive this car alone. I'm ready to co-pilot. I'm ready to let you pilot and maybe not even a backseat driver. I'm along for the ride. You tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. But I think it's something that God's asking to us. He commands of us. So for those of you that are visiting, I do just want you to know that you're at a really, really cool place. Robert says all the time, if you know what the person to your left or the right did before they knew him, you probably wouldn't sit by him. That's pretty true. A lot of us have some messed up backgrounds. Sometimes it takes messed up people to heal messed up people. As we talk about our healing classes, which, typically begin in the fall, it's an opportunity for you to look to God, to look to his people, to look to his word, to find that healing, find that, that first step in that process, of humbling yourself, and having him work in your life. Every Sunday we talk about, if you pull out within your bulletin, there's a cardstock piece of paper. I don't have one. It says where the power of life meets the power of God. There's an opportunity there for you to make that decision, right? We talk about it takes a decision. And like I said, maybe it's your first time. Maybe you're just saying, oh, I'm checking it out. Oh, they moved from Winsfield to O'Fallon. I'm closer. I'll go check it out. There's boxes on there. Ones to get help in your marriage. Ones to get help in parenting. Ones to sit down and study the Bible. To grow in a relationship with God. So whatever's on your heart today, I pray that you check that box. I pray that you're open in your prayer requests. We just talked about we have to ask God for help. And some of that starts with just writing a prayer on that note, on that cardstock piece of paper. So I'm going to pray, and the worship team is going to come up and close us out with a couple songs. So Father God, I thank you so much for today. God, I can't help but, I don't know, I long to be here. Like I said, missing last week was really hard. I think it was, even our kids were talking about, they were going to church, but we're not going to be at our church. And that was difficult for them. Pray that everyone here gives you an opportunity to fill out that card, mark what they need. And God, I just pray that we begin that process of healing, that restoration process, God. Pray that we can have the humility to do so, the humility to ask for your help. We love you. Praise all in your name.